use them very freely. It really provides a great model for particularly SMBs to make investments into cloud computing, cloud storage, and now cloud collaboration. So the cloud really is providing that necessary vehicle to really make it easy for this mobile world to happen. And then wireless. I can remember not too long ago when our wireless networks were pretty crappy. Now you look at our wireless networks with LTE and it almost approximates what you get in a Wi-Fi N network today inside your building, and that's only going to get better. Inside the building, in front of Wi-Fi, we're going to see technologies like 802.11ac that are going to be hitting devices and phones in February that are going to do gigabit wireless to those devices. So the day's very fast coming where all the ingredients are going to come to place that's really going to provide us an opportunity to build the office that is more about the how I do work versus where I do work. Again, as I mentioned, most of these mobile devices today don't have an Ethernet port on them. They're primarily all wireless. Some of the new close-range technology that are coming, you can see the day when you walk into your office, push an application on your phone or on your pad, and automatically it lights up the larger display on your desk, the phone client at your desk, and your keyboard. And off you go to work, and it's time to finish. You just walk out the door and everything goes with you, and that becomes your computer, that becomes your communications device, that becomes your storage device. It's everything in one device. So there's a lot of pieces that are coming to bear that are really going to change this model. From a demand perspective, this year we will see more mobile devices than people in the world. By 2015, they're going to be adding an additional 15 billion wireless mobile devices to the world's networks. So as you can imagine, the stress on corporate networks, on small business networks, on service providers, the handoff from wide area network to Wi-Fi are very real issues that we have to solve and be able to deal with. They're expecting by the year 2015 to ship over 250 million pads of certain types throughout the world. And it's going to be very common that most of you will have at least 2, if not 3, mobile devices that you'll be using on a regular basis. Today, 56% of people work outside the office. I'm one of them. And the forecast is by 2015, 75 to 80% will not have an office that they call home. They basically will work at their home, they'll work on the road, they'll work somewhere else other than a desk. So the concept of that type of environment. It also brings up a separate management challenge. How do you manage people that you may only see physically once a year? So using these tools such as desktop video, collaboration are going to be your ways for actually how you actually manage your employees going forward. And as you can imagine from an IT perspective, this world creates so many challenges for how do you onboard devices, how do you deal with security, how do you deal with the fact that you have guests bringing devices onto your network, and how you want to protect access to your critical data. So I guess you could say the mobile computing era is upon us. We're leaving the desktop era, moving to the mobile era. And that's kind of how we're viewing it from our perspective and the technology that we're building. And I mentioned some of these things already. 4G and LTE are really delivering the next step of Wi-Fi, of WAN wireless technology. I mentioned 11 AC, gigabit type technology. But the last piece I think also is going to be happening is that seamless border between the WAN and the local area networks, so you can roam in and out of the network as if it's one big private network all over the world. So that boundary between those two worlds becomes more fuzzy and becomes more seamless in terms of your capabilities and your security to access your data, to communicate efficiently among your employees, as well as talk to the public. So when I work through my IT networking challenges with my customers, these are some of the things I have to deal with to make sure that I'm delivering for them that next step for that BYOD and beyond. How do I deal with, like I said, device onboarding, where my employees now bring multiple devices in the network. And how do I actually figure out how I'm going to have one policy? So I log on one time and authenticate one time, and I have access to all my resources from my devices because I am David Tucker, and I don't have to do it device by device by device. I also want to be able to have a virtual presence in my office at my home. I want the same thing to occur there or wherever I am. The other challenge is how do you create that user experience that is common, simple, that customers can consume all the applications and all the access to my network. And this is going to be one of the biggest challenges, is how do you make the user interface usable to the point that employees, not like the folks in this room, but less technical folks, can use it and be productive, because that's the bottom line of this. I mentioned cloud computing and now cloud collaboration. The asynchronous aspects of cloud, where I have my sales data, or I'm storing my files offline, or my financial system is in the cloud, is now also morphing to the point where I can have my entire collaboration experience in the cloud. Meaning that my premise equipment becomes very simple. I can now have a virtual office. In fact, when you look at startups, in the world of startups today, and you look at the cost to get a small company started, it's totally changed from 10 years ago. I don't need all the infrastructure. I don't have to have everybody in one location. I can actually have a virtual startup with employees all over the world, and I can tap into resources wherever they are because of these technologies. So when you combine mobility and cloud together, you have the opportunity to change productivity of employees, which is the bottom line. How can I do more with less? How can I actually provide better access to my customers? How do I better link into my suppliers? The network is going to be the key to helping this really tie together. And this is where we spend a lot of our time, is how do we make it simple for our customers, yet provide them the security they need to make all this possible. For example, my wireless network in my office, I want it to be as predictable as my wired network. I want it to have the same kind of performance as my wired network. I want to have the same kind of security as my wired network. Those are the kinds of challenges we're trying to tackle with our wireless solutions. This was mentioned earlier today, and I noticed talking to some of the folks here at the show, this collaborative workspace is really the key theme that you see throughout many presentations. It's how do I bring together my social networking aspects of it, my visual, my virtual. How do I make it where my office is no longer a place, but how I work? And that's how I do my job today. How do I bring my collaboration technologies such as instant messaging, sharing documents, voice and video together in a seamless way? That's going to be the challenge, is how best to do this in such a way that most users can consume it and use it easily. As you know, we're also a very big believer in video. Video traffic on the internet today consumes about 50% of all the bandwidth on the internet today, two-way video. In 3 years, it's forecasted to consume 90% of the bandwidth on the internet will be two-way video. Video will be the next voice. We will move to a point where every conversation you have has a video component to it. I know today, in my 8 or 10 hours, probably 2/3 of my time I'm doing with video. Whether it's on a telepresence system, whether it's on my laptop, or whether it's on my iPad. All those technologies all interrelate, and it makes it easier for me to communicate with my employees. And that's because most of my employees are in two places in California. They're in Germany, and they're also in Australia. I'm by myself in Dallas. So for me to manage my employees, I use these tools. We've also equipped our suppliers to use these tools. It makes it easier for me to work with my partners in China and Taiwan when I'm using video. I get a better experience. And for many folks, it's like the first time they get into it, but after they get used to it, it becomes to the point where they can't do it any other way. And that's how we do business today. Gardner kind of said it here a little bit differently. People really just don't want computers. They really want that experience. So we're moving from the concept of the desktop really to how do I make my work easier and how do I make the experience of communications easier. And here's another way of saying the same thing too, is I don't care about the devices, I don't care about the platforms, I don't care about the deployment model. Make it work for me. So this is the challenge that we have as vendors, as suppliers to our customers. It's not just about providing the coolest technology. We have to make it high quality, we have to make it sustainable, easy to support, easy to install, and very cost effective. And you throw all those things together, that's where the challenge really happens. And our customers are also going to be driven a lot by security. We cannot forget how important security is in this world in terms of protecting data. When you have people bringing devices on your network, you have a new threat. You have a device, so your access points and your wireless network have to be protecting that at the edge. It can't be just at the UTM device or the router device on the broadband side anymore. You really have to look at it across the entire network. From a Cisco perspective, and I don't want to do a whole lot of advertising here, but like what you've heard in many of the talks, for us combining what we have with WebEx and Jabber and our video clients with our UC products and our voice solutions, really trying to bring that together into a unified experience is the call of action. And to be able to do it through multiple customer segments is the challenge. The enterprise customer is very different than a small business customer. So be able to have that consistent experience from a very small customer to a very large enterprise customer is one of the most difficult things for us to work through. And then to be able to actually then overlay it to various deployment models that customers have, whether it's a customer that has 20,000 users or a customer that has 5 users, and whether they're going to be completely mobile or they're going to actually have an office somewhere. And of course, as we mentioned before, you have to be somewhat device independent. And you got to be on your toes, because as I mentioned, and from what I learned from talking to the silicon providers, the devices are going to rapidly change. It's going to keep us all on our toes to keep up with the technology and make it easy for our customers to deploy the technology and for us to keep them up to speed as things happen. So I guess you could say the fixed desktop era is, or the post-fixed desktop era is really upon us. And as I mentioned, there's a lot of risk here. There's a lot of risk. It's not just about deploying the coolest technology. We really have to make sure our customers know how to deploy this technology and how to manage it, whether they're doing it themselves or whether they have a partner or whether they have a service provider as their supplier. They understand how to protect their data, how to authenticate into the network and actually have access to the various elements of their corporate content, how they deal with viruses and malwares and other kinds of security threats and protect from that. So all that has to be woven together to make sure that you provide that uncompromised experience to customers, not only high quality and all the bells and whistles, but you give them the comfort that they know that they're not going to put their company at risk. And as you can see from the chart here, a lot of fears from IT managers as their employees are bringing devices on premise, wanting them to be part of the network. How do you onboard them and ensure that they're also secure? So from an architecture standpoint, it takes a lot of pieces. Building all the security that's necessary to make sure it's open at the same time, tied into security so you don't open up any vulnerabilities. I mentioned the flexible deployment models. How do you deal with all different size customers, all different size configurations with a single consistent experience across the board? And as I mentioned also, video. Video is the game changer. That's really going to change the way we communicate. In fact, it's kind of fun to think back many years how technology and communication continues to evolve. But as humans, we continually want to do one thing, and that is to have that social interaction with people, that face-to-face interaction, as if we're sitting across the desk from them. And we're continuing to leverage technology to break down the barriers of time and really of distance more than anything else. And I think we're continuing to tap into that, and that's really the call that we're trying to work through. So convergence really enables an awful lot. It brings together all of our content and information in a very secure way. It allows us to be anywhere to do our work. It allows us to use all different kinds of devices, to migrate from old technology to new technology. And these are all the challenges that we're going to have as vendors and as suppliers. It's a call of action that I'm actually calling out to this audience, is that we have to make sure that our customers understand the technology very simply, can install it very simply, and they can use it and consume it, because it will make their lives better and it'll help them in building their businesses. Last thing I want to say is, when you look at the technology coming from this country, there's a lot of competitive global interaction going on, but I'm still amazed with the innovation that comes out of places like Austin and Dallas and California and New York. And that's one thing when you look at this technology and you look around the room and then you go see the show, it's still pretty amazing that you see every year after year, you see the innovation come to the forefront, and we see new technologies. And that's what's going to keep, I think, this country on the edge, or the leading edge, in the economic growth side that we really want to see for the U.S. So my closing thoughts are, in particular, again, thinking about small businesses and medium-sized businesses, is I believe that we're on the cusp of what mobile technology is going to do to change how people build their office. So I called it reinventing the office, because I think the old concept and how we view how people construct their offices with desks and everything else is going to be changing even more. And I think we have the opportunity to continue to help customers do that. And there will be organizational model and behavioral challenges for our managers to deal with in this environment. I think the cloud will continue to evolve in such a way that you'll see even greater technology that's easily available, and even more importantly, provide that very high functionality at a reasonable cost to the very smallest customer. And again, last point is, you got to make it simple, and you got to make it secure. So with that, I really appreciate your time today, and thank you very much.